Okay, go up to the shield in the upper left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, let me pause this.
That we're in danger of having a quorum, and it is the appointed time. So let's start this meeting. We're going to start, first off, we have one of our directors, Director Jaquith, is remote. I hope Waldo's online at this time. Waldo, I see your face.
Yes, I am. Hello.
I hear you there too. According to our rules, and I have inspected the record, and Director Jaquith has not participated more than twice remotely since we enacted these rules. He can do so if we vote him onto the island, so to speak, after he gives us some specificity as to why he's not here. Waldo, if you'd like to speak and tell us why you're not here and where you are.
I am in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I'll be meeting with the governor's office tomorrow. So I'm in a extended stay hotel next to a highway. It's all very glamorous.
I move that we admit Director Jaquith to participate in the meeting, assuming you can hear us and see us, which I believe you can.
With uncanny, it is very interesting to participate remotely and to see how very clearly that I can hear everybody in the room. It's really something.
There's a second to that motion. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Waldo, welcome to the quorum. You are now part of the meeting.
Thank you.
The next item we have is the approval of the agenda. I trust everyone's had an opportunity to look at it. Any suggestions or changes for that? Hearing none.
So moved.
Very good. Second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Now we're on to announcements by authority members. Does anyone have anything?
Just that today we started the budget process for Albemarle County. We'll go through early May. There are about 7 or 8 meetings that are variously scheduled throughout that time period.
Wow. Anything else?
I had a meeting with people on Arrowhead Valley Road, and I looked them up and saw that they're listed as part of the RISE project, and I was very happy.
That's good. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
All right, then we'll move along.
I actually had.
I'm sorry, Bill.
That's fine. I usually don't have anything. March 7th in this room, 4 to 7. It's a work on the telecommunications, but it has some coverage issues that are part of that, and people may be interested in that. So we're working on a telecommunication, updating the county's telecommunications ordinance. And part of that, we're looking at coverage for wireless coverage. And this is just an introductory meeting on March 7th.
That reminds me, let me divert for just a second. Mr. Deloria, you had provided me with a notice before this meeting about an action that's pending in Richmond with regard to fiber crossings of railroads.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking about the county's regulations, one of the things we hear often from our vendors is that if they have to cross a railroad, they have no way to predict how long the delay is going to be because there's no timeline the railroad has to make this possibility available to them. Not that they necessarily are obstructing, it's just not what they do. And this is an action by the legislature to attempt to put some finite timelines and costings around that so that this can happen in human scale times, not geologic time to get done. So that was very exciting. Thanks for the notice, Richie.
And as I read it, that's a good summary of what it'll do. I don't think it impacts the county so much. It's more between the service providers and the railroads. The only downside that I saw is it doesn't come into effect until July 1. It'd be nice if it would come into effect when the governor signs it, but that still subject to reconciliation and veto. I don't know if any changes like that will happen.
I think it passed both houses unanimously. It just has to be reconciled.
It did. There was a replacement bill in the Senate. So as I commented in the email, I'm not familiar enough with the legislative process to know if that means it goes straight to the governor or it has to go to reconciliation. But either way, it should go to the governor, and I would expect him to sign
So that was just a bit of good news. It seemed like good news for this authority. Any other comments? Then we'll go on to public comment. This is the opportunity for folks who either online or present here in the room to address the authority. You can have 3 minutes and ask us questions, tell us what's on your mind, whatever you have. If you're online, please use the raise hand, or I guess if you've dialed in, it's *7 or something like that. So is there anyone from the public who'd like to address the authority?
We do not have any raised hands, Chair.
How many attendees are there, just so we can keep track of that?
3.
Thank you.
All right.
Free public.
3 public attendees, including representatives from Firefly and Red Beat.
So we'll move on to the approval of the January 25th meeting minutes. I trust everyone received a copy of those. Any substantive comments on that, Bill?
No, Waldo, thank you for your comments. There's some corrections, make the flow better.
And my corrections were of no real substance, though.
Right, and Richie pointed out that the minutes as I originally sent out did not reflect that the December minutes were approved. They've now been amended, so they show the December minutes were approved.
Is there a motion to approve?
As amended.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? No. I note for the record here that Director Jaquith voted aye. So those minutes are approved. I think that takes us on to old business. We have a VADI 2021 update.
We do.
Are you going to be running the show, or are we pulling in Mike for some of this? Or?
I'm going to
Okay.
be juggling as many balls as I can. Not a whole lot of changes compared to last month. Continued construction across all of the project areas. We've had frequent updates from Mr. Schulman and his team, and they are very focused on meeting that March 31st deadline, and are confident that they're going to be able to land that. 2 small updates. We did have a letter from DHCD that I believe was shared with Mr. Walsh and the authority, stating that following their last site visit, they saw considerable improvement, and are confident that the corrective action plan is having a positive effect. And then the last of the Taylor's Gap tranches along Murray Lane did launch, and so that brings us now to just awaiting the Stony Point and the Campbell Cobham project areas. Per request from Mr. Henry, we tried to give you guys a little bit more history, and this is a very dense table. You guys have a copy in your packet that you can take a closer look at. To simplify it, I made a couple of graphs. This is orders by project area. This is one that you generally want to see going up and to the right for that top line. But for the rest of them, you kind of want to see them plateau after a certain point. And that is largely what we've seen. This is just for the October through February timeframe. The interesting one is actually this one, and this is percent pending. So of the orders placed at that snapshot in time, how many are still pending? And that's one that you want to see going down and to the right. And as you can see, across the board, except for one, and I believe that is Gilbert Station, where a new order was actually recently placed, they are moving in the right direction. From December to February, it's a pretty dramatic change, and it's demonstrative of the impact that the corrective action plan and the efforts of Mr. Schulman to bring on additional crews to do this work is having on this work. This is just covering installations. Obviously, the construction work is ongoing, and we have our new field guy, Bob Shada, who is now working to follow up and look at different project areas, review the work that has been completed, and review work that is currently ongoing. So by the next meeting, we will have some updates from him.
Thank you. Tillman, the gray line is declining, but then starting in January, has gone back Is that reflective of new orders coming in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And to offer any additional updates and to answer any additional questions, we have Mr. Schulman here.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for going to the trouble of putting together graphs and things like that. The table with 3 months trailing from the current month is a great way for me to see things. I mean, that helps me visualize stuff. The graphs are nice, I always like colors, but the raw data is fantastic.
Good, I'm glad.
And at this stage in the project where we're getting close to the very end, really where we are with the installs is far more interested in where we are in the build. Right. Because it's time to, the rubber is meeting the road. We should be measuring our performance.
Although I'll tell you, as somebody in an area awaiting the builds, I'm also very interested in the progress of the builds. It is the buzz of folks in Stony Point about what's being built where and when and how it's progressing and so on. So I appreciate both portions of these updates.
I would be interested in just hearing an update from Mr. Schulman related to kind of current state, and then, the next 5 weeks of work to make the deadline. Sure. If that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm glad to give you an update there. I was actually hoping that I could make a great announcement, at least on one of those tranches, but I wasn't able to do it, but we're awfully close on Eastham. So I actually drove the Stony Point Pass route this afternoon before the meeting, which is I know we're doing some bores there that are still going on. So for the Eastham, those 3 tranches were in really good shape. We've got I think almost all of the fiber in place. I think on Bill's store we just got this past week about half a mile of fiber placed. And we've got a little more boring to do near where the big device is going. And then we're doing getting the splitters in, getting all that work done. So we're really comfortable that we're on a good track for everything there. And then at the same time, we're not doing these sequentially, waiting to finish one area before we start the other area. So Cobham and the Sismont Campbell, I think we've actually done put a mile of fiber that's been placed in the Sismont Campbell project, which is really good. So we're doing real well on all those. I think our goal is to be done far in advance of the deadline is what we internally have been doing. And we're still hoping to meet the internal deadline that we have to be done and not coming in sliding in the home plate right at the end. So we should be in good shape.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. On the installations, knock on wood, I mean, I think we're seeing fewer complaints coming in. And I think the reason why is because we actually were able to hire on 5 additional boring crews to be able to put those lines in, the temps, and get for those folks that were waiting on getting buried drops, that's helped out an awful lot. I knew we were getting a lot of concerns coming from the Rosemont area, and those have been attacked recently, and gotten a lot of those done. So I've gotten some really nice emails from customers out there that are finally hooked up and happy that everything is going well. So really good to see far fewer complaints coming in, and people are happy. Once they're connected, they're pretty happy. So.
Any questions? Okay. Thanks for your
Thank you.
Jason, you want to take us on?
Yeah, the only other pending update on Body 21 is we did hear from Brightspeed that by the next meeting, by the next ABA meeting, they should have an invoice submitted. That is their expectation. So we will have that to discuss next month. With Body 22, it's similar to Body 21. Work is progressing. The biggest change in the RISE project is that there was one rail crossing that was holding up a number of installations in Albemarle County for the CVEC build out. And as luck would have it, certainly not related to the legislation that is pending before the governor's desk, the approvals that were being awaited were suddenly given. And so work is now going to finalize those installations, which is really exciting because it's a long time coming to get that portion of the project wrapped up. But make-ready work continues in AP and REC areas, and they still continue to expect to make some connections in the spring. The tracking page still isn't updated for Dominion, and we are hearing that Dominion's plan for completing its middle mile will be towards the end of this year. It's unclear whether that means that they're not currently putting fiber in their facilities, but the expectation is we're not going to learn more about it until the end of the year.
Okay.
And Mr. Wood is online if you guys have any questions with them. We also have representatives from TJPDC.
Is there any other news we should be should be aware of?
My name is Lori Alshouse. I'm the director of the body project for TJPDC, and we are having a stakeholders meeting on March 2nd, where all the utility partners will be providing updates on the project overall. So I think there'll be some updates, and appreciate working with Albemarle County and understanding things are going well. And Gary knows much more details about the project, and he's online. So thank you.
Gary Wood, if you're listening, if there's something you want to say to us, just raise your hand and we'll get you on.
I've allowed him to talk.
I see that I've been given a chance to talk, and that's a dangerous thing for me.
I recognize that.
So I won't take too long, but I will say that we have seen a significant improvement in turnaround from Norfolk Southern over the last few weeks. I think that they're taking very seriously the encouragement they received in Richmond. We not only completed the Red Hill crossing for the last CVEC fiber, but we also have received approvals on 8 different permits for the RISE areas of the Appalachian Power electric service territory, also around Red Hill, that had been outstanding. So they are moving very quickly, and I think part of it is because they realize there's a spotlight on broadband and particularly on railroad crossings. Other than that, your updates covered most of it. We do know that Dominion is still working in Albemarle. We've heard the same date as far as finishing up by year end. That doesn't mean that everything will happen at year end. Some will, construction will start earlier, but it'll be spread throughout the year and hopefully finish up at year end. We've heard, without me speaking for Dominion, the Appalachian Power Make Ready is due to be complete fairly soon, within the next month or 6 weeks, and we should start putting fiber up. We may even start putting up a little fiber before they're completely finished, so that we can get underway in the Appalachian Power area of Red Hill. And we are actively pushing Rappahannock to finish up some work so we can start placing some fiber up in the northern area, north of Whitehall. On the CVEC side, we're connecting people in the Whitehall area. I think we've got about 200 folks connected. We've still got about 600 or so to go. And we've just started in the Schuyler and Red Hill areas. So that's my quick overview. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Gary. Are there any questions? I appreciate it very much. I think we're set. Thank you, sir. Want to take us on?
Sure. So much singing the same song with Body 23. There is no update because we have not heard. It's important to note at this point. Generally, by the February-March timeframe, we would be talking to you guys about preparations for Body 24. And that update sounds a lot like this, because if we are not going to see an approval on this project, then Body 24 will likely include Body 23. There were some changes to the coverage for one of our incumbent providers. I think we mentioned that briefly, and that is shaping up to be the other portion of our Body 24 application for unserved areas. And so once we have guidelines and once we hear word on Body 23, we will know what Body 24 is going to bring us. But as we did mention last time, Body 24 is also shaping up to be part and parcel with the BEAD funding, or at least initial allocations.
So we still don't have a good idea what the budget's going to be until that settles down a little bit more.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions? I think that takes us through all the body project reports. So, Mr. Treasurer?
We do have an update on the budget. It reflects payment of the first invoice for VADI 2022 since our last report that was listed as pending at that point. And then as Mr. Inafuentes just mentioned, we do expect to be receiving the invoice for the upgrades to the VADI 2021. I'm not sure we'll have that paid over it would likely be after completion of the project that we would then process it. So we should see that at least in a receipt mode in a month. So no big changes, but a notable one for 22.
An actually physically different report this time. So that's
Physically different. The columns changed for first time in a while. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Anything else on the financial side?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office report.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any up-to-date slides. Again, somewhat singing the same song this whole time. The RDEP, the Regional Digital Equity Plan Coalition that we've developed, has been very active in preparing for our spring planning activities that were discussed last time. Those include cohorts of UVA students that will be doing focus groups, as well as some quantitative analysis of data to explore questions of digital equity in the area. We are still awaiting word on the ACP outreach grant application that we submitted to the FCC. The expectation from our grants office is that this is something that we will receive most likely in March rather than before March, which gives us time to work on our RFPs. We are planning on having an update at our next RDEP meeting, which is tomorrow. I'm happy to share a link if anybody would like to join from DHCD, where they're going to be doing a brief overview, introducing the office to the coalition and discussing their plans for their Digital Equity Act activities. They've already received, I believe, $500,000 in funding on that piece of the IIJA project, and so they are going to be giving an update on those plans tomorrow. The meeting is at 12:30, and their portion should start at about 1 o'clock. And lastly, as we mentioned last time, and again, my apologies that it was slipped in right at the end of the meeting, we did have an opportunity to present before the school board on behalf of the office and the coalition. The message was largely well received. The school board did have a focus on, the school system did have a focus on their digital literacy program, which is currently being implemented for middle and high school students, which I think is a really it's a really great thing, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't consider, that our tech-savvy kids need the kind of education that really all of us need. And so they are actively engaged in that work, and there were several questions regarding that. We also briefly discussed the county schools' investments in fiber, as well as other technology, including a spectrum allocation that they attempted to use previously, and the E-rate program that allowed the schools to use federal dollars to purchase and implement their own fiber network. That's something that we certainly think has a lot of potential as an asset for the community.
Okay. Any questions?
Was there any specific follow-up ask to the office?
Nothing specific. I think that the hope is that as the coalition continues and as our office continues its work, that we will have lots of opportunities to interface with the schools and keep them up to date through those interactions.
Are you done?
I am.
Fantastic. Well, let's move on then. This is good. We have people who need to leave early. We may actually get to a point where you don't have to leave before we're done. That's fantastic. We've got a motion before us that was introduced previously with regard to allowing for a consent agenda as a part of our normal agenda. And Mr. Deloria, could I call on you just to introduce this briefly? I think we're all familiar with it, but just for the record.
Yes, sir. It's fairly straightforward, and what it does is it adds a consent agenda item to the overall agenda, so that staff in consultation with the chair can determine what items could just, usually for information only, reports, that sort of thing that can go into a consent agenda. So that'll be, the materials will be included with the packet, but it'll be subject to just kind of a group approval by a vote. It does allow that any individual member of the board can pull it from the consent agenda, and then it'll come up just for regular discussion and any action needed to be taken. It's modeled after the Board of Supervisors consent agenda, which I think works very well. It's not specific to any particular report, so it's not the quarterly reports or body reports. It could be other items that, even action items that, very similar to this one, that don't take much discussion and can be agreed upon pretty summarily. So the notice was provided because it is a change of the rules, so we had to have at least one meeting's notice.
Any questions or comments?
I think it's a great idea.
I just want to point out, I've never been a member of a body that used a consent agenda practice. I've only observed that. So I want to apologize in advance for some future meeting when I violate the norms of the consent agenda. Not intentional. I'll get used to it.
Just to be clear, Director Jakowitz, we will require an apology at the time as well. So-
I would be happy to do so. Yes, I will be suitably ashamed, I guarantee.
Yes, Donna.
Should on paragraph D2, should there be a comma after the word comma? So that it reads, there should be either no discussion or comment, comma, or only a brief discussion or comment on consent agenda items, to show that those are two alternatives. Because otherwise there are a lot of ors.
That seems sensible.
I mean, I think it's appropriate to put commas in. I mean, I don't want to get into the debate
Stopping
that even
line.
goes on in our office about commas.
Commas and
I think
footnotes.
the younger generation has ended up with as many commas as you can put in, the better. And I'm a little bit older, so I look at the ors as
Well,
so that's fine.
so this would be after the word comment, no discussion or comment, comma,
Right.
or only brief discussion or comment
comma.
on consent agenda items. Yeah, I think that's a nice way to break that. I would endorse that change. Anyone opposed to that idea? I dare you to speak. Okay.
Then may I move that we adopt the resolution as amended to amend the rules of procedure to provide for a consent agenda item on the agenda.
I'll second that.
Brief comment before we vote. I'm sorry, is that a comma or a comment?
Of course, this works because the materials related to the consent agenda
Are
item
distributed in
distributed
advance.
in advance, so they have the opportunity
I
to
would,
read that. So it's not just enough to have it on the agenda, it's actually have the paperwork because with
and I expect anyone who did not feel that the materials have been distributed sufficiently in advance for consideration to pull those items so that they could be properly discussed. All those in favor signify so by saying aye and raising your hand. Aldo? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Hearing none, we unanimously approve that change. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richie. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Richie.
If we don't have that comment in the board's procedures, I'm gonna look to see about adding that, and that would be my comment.
That may be the case.
It probably is.
Are there any items,
adopted for the year.
are there any new business items that we need to take up? We were racing towards a new record high temperature tomorrow. We were racing towards a new fastest ABBA meeting ever record tonight. If there's nothing else,
Maybe we need to send Director Culp west more often. I'm kidding, Mike.
We're gonna table that thought, but we'll bring it up at the next meeting.
We need to, is Mike on so we can?
Yes, he
actually
is.
hear him
His
say
eyes
hi
are
to
on,
us
his,
before-
yeah. Are there anything else before we adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
May I comment
Great,
for
great meeting, great meeting.
attendees at the back of the room today for their incredible conduct?
Yes.